Welcome to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We are so excited to have you joining us on this journey where we explore different ways to empower your soul, whether it's healing in your kitchen or all the way up in the corporate world. Come with us as we look into different ways to heal your mind, body, and soul. My virtual obsession, my romantic thriller, is now available on Amazon and other online retailers. This book explores the intersection of loneliness, love, and how chasing perfection through technology can lead to fantasy and reality colliding. My virtual obsession out now.
Hey everyone, it's Catherine Crestani with another episode of Willow Healing Matters, and today I'm joined by the beautiful Lisa Hedley. So Lisa is a psychospiritual counselor, transformation advisor, and hand analyst who specializes in uncovering and integrating the shadow side to help clients heal, eradicate negative habits, and liberate consciousness to actualize their higher self. She has an educational background in fine arts, philosophy, transformative learning, Ashtanga, Ashtanga, and therapeutics, yoga, hand analysis, and 39 years of spiritual practice. Her work is transformation training at the intersection of therapeutic and spiritual frameworks as a science-based and intuitive healer. She's dedicated to guiding clients to discover and trust their own inner wisdom so they can go deeper, foster more meaning and joy, and fully actualize their purpose. So a big welcome to the show, Lisa.
Hi, thank you for having me. What a pleasure to be here.
Straight away, I want to ask, what is a hand analysis? Is it similar to palm reading or is it different?
So, hand analysis does have its origins in ancient palmistry, but it now has decades of scientific, neuroscientific, and psychological research to back it up. So, we now know that there are more connections between the hands and the brain than any other part of the body, and the sensory cortex and the nervous system are sending discernible signals to the hands that we can actually read. And it's really very fascinating because it essentially points to patterns. We find our soul psychology in our fingerprints, and then the rest of the hands is where we find the personality psychology. So the fingerprints, the soul psychology would be the life schools, your purpose, and the lessons. And the fingerprints are fully formed in utero by 15 weeks. So before you're born, you have already decided these things for your life path. And then the rest of the hand, the lines, the shape, the color, the texture, all of those things, they change over the duration of our lifetime in response to whether we are actualizing that soul psychology or not. So I can see the shadow in the hands, I can see the gifts, and it's the entry point to my work because it gives me a shortcut, essentially. I can see very concretely where the shadow patterns are, and then it's easily accessible to go straight in and do the work rather than spending hours and hours of time with a client trying to uncover that through conversation.
Fascinating. I love that because it made me think a little bit of astrology. You know, how like if you actually listen to your astrology, you kind of have from that moment that you come in. But this is even before that, right? Like it's already
Yes.
imprinted because you don't
Yes.
know what day you're going to come into this world technically, because you could be emergency, it could be, and that sort of thing. But clearly the soul already knows more than we do.
The soul has already made choices before it gets here. Yes. It's very, very interesting. It in my mind, it definitely gives me a sense of courage and conviction around the choices we make because it tells us, yes, I had a purpose when I came and I'm here to fulfill, a certain kind of destiny.
Yeah. And do you find, I'm just looking at my own hand. So obviously your fingerprints tend to stay the same, right? I don't know if you've
Your
had.
fingerprints stay completely the same for the duration of your life. They're not going to change at all. So, yes, that's the soul psychology. That's what you already decided before you were born.
And then the rest of your hand, if you make choices to change to go more aligned with your soul psychology, do you find the hand starts to change?
Yes. So, obviously, we all have things like a heart line, a lifeline, a headline. And there are differences in those, obviously, but those lines can also tell us where you've run into trouble. There are various markers in those lines that can tell us that there has been difficulty along the way. A guarded heartline, for example, is someone who probably had a really difficult time expressing emotions in their family of origin and then learned to guard their heart. And so that's a direct response to the experiences that they had in their childhood. Other things like a gift marker, for example. So There are lines that are gift markers. There are stars that are gift markers. Those can develop in response to how we are actualizing our purpose or not. There are also challenge markers that will also, they will start to form in response to whether we are usually not in alignment with our soul psychology, because essentially if you're living your purpose, you're living in your zone of self-actualization. So you shouldn't necessarily have challenges in there if you are in alignment, correct? So if you're out of alignment, then you're starting to form challenges that are showing you that the energy is getting blocked. So if there's a star formation, for example, and you have to have 6 points for it to be, it has to be at least 6 to be a fully formed star. And that marker will tell us that there's a blockage of energy there. It's a concentration of energy. So it can be both something that is a gift or it can be something that is a challenge. So the concentration says, you have a lot of this kind of energy. What kind of marker is this? Is it a challenge marker? In which case, maybe there's some area in there that needs to be worked on to remove that blockage. And then eventually that star will fade and probably go away entirely. Or if it's a gift marker, are you using that gift? This is the thing about the gifts. When you have a consolidation of energy that's a gift, it wants to be used. It's like a blessing that the divine has given you. And if you're not using it, it does come with penalties. These gifts want to be used. And they're usually gifts that are in direct alignment with fully using your purpose, fully actualizing your purpose. Those gifts will help propel your gift, your purpose rather. Those gifts will help bolster your purpose. Those gifts are really exactly that. They're gifts, right? They're supposed to be used in service. And so whatever your purpose is also here in service, whatever that may be. Some people are here. My best friend happens to be a love master. She is here to live a life of her passions. She's all about just loving the things that she does and following that. And so it's less specific to her. She gets to kind of design her life around the things that she loves. We should all be doing that, right? But her purpose is to do that essentially so that she gets to lead by example. She gets to shine that light in the world by leading through example. Other people have much more specific purposes, but we don't know that until we look at the hands.
That's so fascinating. And I love that you brought up that if you don't use your gifts, there are consequences. So a very concrete example I had happen to me where when my psychic gifts started to come online, I could hear things through my left ear. So I would get these messages, but then they started coming through for people that I love, like family. And one of them was my grandmother who had passed, and I could feel her coming through. And I'm like, I don't want to give that message to my dad. I don't even know how to have that conversation because I was going through this and I just wasn't ready. And I actually lost the hearing in my ear, like for that week, because I wasn't listening. And I knew, oh, wait, okay, I'm ignoring this. I need to listen. I just need to write down whatever's coming through. And so then I rang my dad and he's like, oh, was this a dream? It's like, nope, because I knew I couldn't try and discount it or put it to the side. And then when I read for him what came through, he was actually incredibly accepting, but then went into defensive dad mode and went, okay, but don't tell anyone about this. And I'm like,
There is a
okay.
line for clairvoyance in the hands. There
Oh,
is a very distinct
interesting.
line for someone who has that gift. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've seen it. I love it when I see it because then someone feels less shy, perhaps, about having that gift when it gets confirmed for them.
Yeah. But that's the thing too. Like we have these gifts and we can choose to keep pushing it down, but then there's always that niggling that we're missing out on something in life. I know for me, that was me. Like I didn't feel fulfilled. On the outside, I looked okay, but there's something more. And when we start to dig upon that, and I know I'm not there yet, but I'm taking steps to get there. And that feels more fulfilling than trying to find that purpose and trying to figure out why you're here.
Yes. Yes. I have some very challenging penalties in my gifts. In fact, some of the hardest penalties in all of the gifts. And for me, it's like it becomes like psychologically heavy. Depression, despair, you know, all the worst possible things you can experience emotionally. And that it becomes motivation to enact those gifts. It really does, because you don't feel good if you're not doing it.
And it also becomes a feedback, right? Where it's like, actually, I'm not utilizing myself, but actually listening to my highest potential and what brings
Yes.
me to where I am here as well.
Yes. Yes. It's a constant reminder to get out there and do it. Go for it. Right. for sure.
And so a question that keeps popping in my head is, what are some examples of gifts? So obviously we just shared clairvoyance, but what are some other examples of gifts that you might see in people's hands?
Well, the star of Jupiter, for example, Jupiter being leadership. So we use the Roman mythological gods as our archetypes in hand analysis. So for example, Jupiter being the leadership star. So that is a gift that is developed because you show aptitude for the kinds of high achievement and influence that would be utilized in a leadership role. I have what we call the Star of Neptune. So that is a gift for deep empathy and spirituality. It's also a penalty of depression if you're not using it. So empathy has to be very much a part of it's a part of my existence. It's not even a part of the work that I do. It's a part of everything that I do, right? It's something that I cannot avoid. Um, the star of Saturn, for example, is the Midas touch marker. So Saturn being the god of resources, time, harvesting, that sort of thing. So if you have the Midas touch gift marker, the Saturn star, then everything that you turn to becomes gold. It's a wealth marker. It tells us that you are very good with resources and you can build wealth. The star of Apollo, Apollo being the sun god. So that's shining your light brightly in the world and not necessarily being a performer, but there is a creative aspect to that. So having a certain kind of presence in the spotlight would be the gift of Apollo. Of course, on the flip side of that is there can be a measure of apathy and lethargy for a penalty. If you're not using it, you can start to feel very diminished if you're not putting that effort into being in the spotlight. But it also comes with caveats, right? You have to move in the direction of all of these gifts with a measure of humility. Remember that they are, in fact, here for service. Even those who shine brightly in the world have a service component to what they're doing. They should. If they're doing their jobs right, they should.
I love that caveat just there. They
Well,
should be doing it.
yes. I just want to remind everyone that there's always that spiritual component, right? To us fulfilling our own life path, there's always that aspect of the spiritual component in that we're always serving the whole, right? Every contribution that we are making that is unique to us serves the collective expansion of consciousness.
And I guess it comes back to, like, first of all, we have free choice, right? You can utilize your gifts or you can choose to ignore them. And some people rather put up with the penalty than embrace who they are. That's just their choice. And then the other aspect of that is that we are all connected. So our choices can have a positive ripple effect or a negative, but at the same time, stepping into our purpose can influence others to step into their purpose too.
Yes, for sure. Many people are here to be examples, right, of open-heartedness and grace and ease and alignment, and they show others or they give others permission to do the same. But I have known people who've had many, many gifts in their hands and they can spiral into a measure of overwhelm. And so it does become crucial the more burdened you are in a sense by gifts and a life purpose that has a very specific undertaking that you do the work, the inner work, that you can get out of your own way in a sense, because it can really start to feel heavy if you say have 5 gifts and all of them are in the penalty stage, then that can be very painful, right? I mean, in my mind, I think, okay, if you have 5 gifts and you're in the penalty zone on those gifts, that is super motivating to take some action to clean up your life. I mean, that's kind of how it happened for me was that I have numerous lessons and 2 schools and a lot of different challenges in my gifts that it was all just too much. I think that's why I started this journey at such a young age. I didn't know all of these things as a kid because, of course, I didn't come to hand analysis until much later in my life. But I knew as a kid that without doing work on myself, I was not going to make it.
And I feel that's such a powerful reminder to everyone listening that you're the only one that can choose to do work on yourself as well.
Yes. Yes. I mean, we obviously have people that mirror to us in our lives the ways that we might not be showing up for ourselves, right? I made a fair amount of bad choices when I was younger, and those were reflected back to me through the people that I harmed, or not necessarily consciously, but you get examples, and they say, "Oh, yeah, this isn't good. This doesn't look good. Doesn't look good on me, doesn't look good on you," right? Time to change my direction somewhat.
Yeah, and I feel too when people get to that point and they just throw their hands up and they're like, I can't do this anymore. I can't keep staying in this cycle. That is when people often reach out. But I like to say, maybe if you're in an okay place, maybe start investigating now so you don't have to get to that that rock bottom. But that's part of the human experience in our story too. Like sometimes we have to get to that point that we realize something needs to change before it actually will.
A lot of people don't necessarily take conscious action, right? They usually have to be bumped around by life circumstances to a certain extent to at least begin the work. And then it becomes obvious as the work is undertaken and you start to feel better and your life starts to expand in positive ways exponentially, that doing the work is much easier than not doing the work. But it usually does take some sort of initial catalyzer to get you moving. And then you can, as you face challenges down the road, right? Because doing the work doesn't mean you're not going to have challenges. It just means that when the challenges come up, you greet them consciously. You have the awareness to say, "Oh, look, here we are in this. You're back in your lesson again." And then taking proactive measures before you go down in that downward spiral and find yourself miserable or stuck or both, right?
Yeah, and I guess this is where it taps into the shadow work that you do with people, right? Because your shadows kind of are there, but the more you get to know them, the less they kind of are, are in darkness, I guess, more than like a better way to explain that.
Always like to remind people that the shadow aspects are not necessarily negative, right? They might have been perceived negatively by those people who were sources of outside indoctrination in our childhood, right? Parents, teachers, siblings. The people that have influence on our lives are the ones who have a tendency to dictate what is and isn't acceptable in us. And so those shadow patterns are started usually not at our discretion, but at the discretion of others. And so we can relegate positive aspects of ourselves to the shadow side if they're deemed, uh, you know, unacceptable by others. But that doesn't mean that they're deemed unacceptable by us. There can be lots of positive things happening in the shadow. And when you open all of that up, you might find yourself getting in touch with parts of yourself that you really like and you can find positive outlets for. The other thing is when you start to bring all of those contents back into your conscious framework, you start to feel whole again, right? There's no part of you that's off limits. You start to feel into those aspects that can be very useful in certain circumstances. Let's say you're someone who's always been a bit of a pushover and you discover that there's a part of you that's just a bit more assertive and aggressive. And that could serve you very well under certain circumstances. So having access to the ability to step into that is very vital, right? It helps us move through life with a bit more ease when we have access to the full breadth of who we are.
Yeah, and I feel you summarized it so beautifully, Lisa, because it is still part of you. It's not like it's a bad part of you, it's just a part of you. And if you can't love the shadows, then how can you say you love all parts of you?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, we all want we want to be loved and seen for who we are in relationships, but we can't get there until we can love and accept who we are for ourselves.
I love this because I was just on a podcast and they're like, oh, if someone's like feeling lonely, what can you say? I said, go take yourself on a date,
Yes.
go take yourself out and get to know yourself more. And it's amazing how many people I meet who have never had like a meal with themselves or taken themselves to the movies or, because they're like, oh, you don't do that by yourself. I'm like, why not? Why wouldn't you just go spend time with you? Like, how's it different from if you just want a coffee and you go have a coffee in the cafe? So, if you can't even have a date with yourself, how are you going to date somebody else?
I love my company. In fact, I love my company so much that I'm actually quite guarded about who I give my time to. I'm like, I'm perfectly good company. I don't actually need to spend time with other people unless I really want to.
Yeah. And I feel that's such a nice standard to have. Not even nice, an amazing standard to have because your time and your energy is your greatest currency. And I feel a lot of us forget that.
Yes. Yes. But I think we also don't know how to show up for others unless we know how to show up for ourselves. I really think the older I get, the more I see that I can't get the love and the care that I want from others until I can show others how I want to be cared for by caring for myself, right? If I treat myself poorly, I'm giving other people permission to do the same.
Yeah, my old coach used to say sometimes people need to know how to love you because
Yeah.
they don't
Yeah.
always understand.
But I don't think you can tell anyone how you want to be loved if you don't know that. I know a lot of people I see a lot of people come through my practice that they have no idea how to love themselves. I'm like, well, then how can you expect anyone else to know how to love you? Right? It's important to get in touch with what's happening inside.
My other favorite question I used to ask my staff, and I'd be like, okay, well, what do you want? And they're like, what? I said, well, you're telling me you're unhappy. What do you want? I can't actually fix that until you tell me what you want or you need for me, like to support you to get to where apparently is a better place. But they just could never answer that. And then they go find another job. And I'm like, you're just going to keep searching for the same thing in every job because you don't actually know what you want in the first place.
My question is always, well, what are you curious about? What piques your curiosity? Because if there's something that's piquing your curiosity, then that's likely what you want, or at least that will lead to what you want. If you're willing to go down the rabbit hole just a little bit, you might discover things that will pique your curiosity and furthermore, your passion,
Mhm.
right?
And then your fingerprints come into play.
Yes, yes. I mean, I went in search of this tool. I didn't even know I was looking for this tool. Um, And it took many years. What I was looking for originally were tools to expedite my own healing process because I had a lot of work to do on myself and I knew that early and I started therapy very early in my life when I was still a kid even. And but I went back to therapy repeatedly and it wasn't until I was in psychotherapy twice a week and sitting there thinking, and this went on for a year, thinking, okay, why do I constantly feel like I'm not getting very far? I feel like I'm treading water here. There has to be a more expeditious way to get to what I'm trying to uncover here. And it was that realization that led me to different tools like astrology, like the Myers Briggs, the Enneagram, the Gene Keys. I was just trying to figure out some of the tools that would lead to personality assessment, that would lead me towards understanding the shadow a bit better, and then perhaps provide me with some frameworks that could expedite my own healing process. But all of those tools are archetypally predictive rather than concretely predictive. So you can be running some of them, but not necessarily all of them. But you don't necessarily know what you're running to a certain measure unless you are very self-aware. And then I found hand analysis and I discovered, lo and behold, it is concretely predictive. It does show me exactly where those patterns are running. And by that point, I'd already done all this work on myself. I had a couple of hand analysis readings and walked away with the courage and conviction that I was absolutely living my purpose because I was before I had the hand analysis reading. But it was nice to have it, finally confirmed for me that I was doing exactly what I was supposed to be doing. What it did tell me was that I wasn't going big enough, that I needed to take my work much bigger. I'm like, yeah, well, incremental steps, right? In that regard, incremental steps. But I knew that I wanted to learn how to do hand analysis because by this point I was already working as a healer, which is my purpose. And I thought if I can see this, then I could really help clients move through this process faster, right? And it was like a promise I made to the universe some time ago that I would help wake up as many people as I could, as quickly as I could. And I thought, okay, well, now I found a tool that will really help me do that.
And then you're like, when those moments come together,
Hallelujah.
right? Yeah. Because I always find it interesting, when you get these little, for me, like I'll get these little pieces of the puzzle and then it'll suddenly all come together and you're like, oh, now I understand.
Yeah. I used to say I was acquiring keys for doorways I had yet to reach.
Yes, beautiful analysis. Yes.
Yeah, well, eventually I reached the door and it had many locks, and I thought, "Wow, look at this. I'm well equipped." I'm
Which key
laying down the keys.
first?
Yeah, exactly.
And when you started doing hand analysis, was it like this, like that aha moment, and it was just a remembering of like, yes, this is what I was looking for, or this is, did it feel like you'd done it before?
It's funny. I didn't think that I had done it before, actually. I continue to be fascinated with it. I think the thing that I love about it more than anything else is that I fall in love with everyone who I read for. It's impossible not to because I get to see how exquisitely beautiful everyone is. And so that to me feels more like a remembrance. It's like, hi, old friend, I see you. We've crossed paths before. It just wasn't this lifetime, right? So there's something really beautiful about, oh, yeah, my heart remembers this. My heart feels this. So that's the thing that I really love about it. But I think for me, it really feels like a new tool in this lifetime. Whereas I had other tools prior to hand analysis, things I still use in my practice they were gifts from my mother. So my mother was a spiritual teacher and she started teaching me some of the tools that I use when I was still a teenager. But my mother talks about our soul contract relationship in the first chapter of her first book. And one of the things that she talks about in there is that I had given her a bunch of information when I first told her about our soul contract relationship and that I was going to be born as her daughter. And that we had spent many lifetimes passing valuable information about waking up back and forth to each other. So, one of the things that she did finally tell me at some point along the way was that I was the original teacher. And this is what spirit has confirmed for me a number of times is that I was the original teacher. So, the information that my mother imparted, she often felt like she was giving me new information where I did just know. And often she would say something and think it was going to be so revelatory to me. And I'd say, I know. And she'd say, how do you know? And I'd say, I don't know how I know. I just know.
You just
I
know.
just know. So there was a lot of stuff I gathered along the way that I did just know, but hand analysis was really new. And I love it for that reason. It still feels so novel and interesting to me.
Love that. Like I have this client at the moment and we have both learned so much because she's very spiritual and things, but we've been unpacking all these things that are going on in her life. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I didn't even know I could do this. And then like there was this new thing and they're like, oh no, this is a new way you can do that. And I was like, what? And it's just that curiosity and excitement, right? And you're like, yeah. And they're like, you guys are going to teach this and write books on it. Like we already have 3 weeks of content. Just
Wow,
from
that's wonderful.
yeah, but at the same time, it's like, wow, like it's again, like you said, that curiosity, right? It's like, oh, okay, well, what if we can't we just do this? Or, like even we were talking about, oh, I wonder if there's a place in the Akashic records that all your curses and karmic contracts are kept. And then they're like, yeah, there is. And I was like, oh, can we like burn that room? And I said, oh, hang on, hang on. We don't want to burn everything because we don't want to have to do it again.
Yeah.
And they're like, just ask for this white God flame to come in. And I was like, oh, and it's like, it will burn what's done and it will be done. And all things that you have declared done. And I was like, oh, that's so simple. Whereas my client's like, can we bomb it and blow it up? I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Hang on, hang on, hang on. Like,
It's useful.
exactly. It's useful.
Yeah.
And we still had to go through those karmic contracts to figure out to get to where we are right now, and that sort of thing too. But it was really interesting. I'm like, oh, look, I've learned something else. This is really cool. And they're my favorite clients that expand you as much as you expand.
Amazing. I think
Yes.
that I mean, I think that we're all coming online more and more, right? I think parts of ourselves that have been hidden away or access to skills that we have that maybe we've carried through many lifetimes are starting to show up more and more. I mean, I hear about all of this quite often from friends who do healing work, or I've sat with clients where they've suddenly had energy coming through their hands and they had never had that it happen before. I've had experiences of my own where, I mean, I remember the first time the guides talked through me to share information with the client, and they hadn't shown up before. I mean, I was aware that my guides were present, but I was suddenly hearing things. I'm like, oh wait, they're chiming in now. This is new. They want to participate. And it was that moment that I thought, oh, maybe what I should do before each and every session is sit in meditation and invite my guides and the client's guides to be present and participate. And I've done that before sessions with clients for years now. But at the time, it seemed crazy to me. And then, nope, they wanted to participate. I'm like, oh, okay, everyone's here. Let's go. No,
That's
because
what
there's
I say.
information coming through. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a party. That's how I describe it to my clients. I said, your guides come over to my guides and they're just having a party and I'm just translating what's coming through because that's why I'm here. I'm just the bridge right now until you can do it yourself. And they're like, oh, right. But it never, it never ceases to me amaze me, but how the client's guides, the information they give you is always perfect for them, even the wording and the humor and everything. And they'll go, oh, yeah, that sounds like me.
Me?
Yeah.
I once got a word from a client's guides and it was harsher than I would have used. And I pushed back and I said, I'm not sure that fits. And then I asked the client, I said, they're telling me this. And she said, oh, yeah, that's right on. And I thought, oh, okay, well, they're being a little more forceful with you than I would have been, just
Yeah.
so you know. Yeah.
Sometimes that's exactly what they need to hear. Because even I do the same thing.
Yep.
I'm like, you want me to say that? You want me to say
Yes, right.
that their relationship and the person's acting like a piece of boop, and they're like, yes, we want you to use that exact wording. I'm like, okay, now these are their words, not mine. I preface
Right.
that.
Yeah.
And as we start to finish our time together, Lisa, I ask the guests that come on the show if you could heal or change something in the world, what would it be?
Our receptivity to receiving the truth about ourselves and the truth about the world that we inhabit, because I think it would create a measure of softening around being vulnerable and being real and being accountable. I frequently think, what would it take to wake up the whole planet? And that would be the thing that I think we have to be able to receive truth with grace.
Yes, yes. There's been a big thing coming up for me just to reflect that back to because I tune in and go, hey, what do I need to do today? Find your truth, find the truth, find the truth, just speak your truth, just whatever that needs to be for you for the day. Because when we're living in our truth, well, we can't really make any wrong decisions because we're honoring us in that moment too.
Yes. Well, it seems that the world we are inhabiting gets further and further from the truth every day, right? I mean,
100%.
technology is beautiful for connecting us, but it is also horrific in how far it can divide us.
Agreed, 100%. And Lisa, if people want to come and find you or get a hand analysis, where can they go?
I am on Substack. They can find me at my website, lisahedley.com. They can book hand analysis from there under the Work With Me tab. And I am offering a $50 discount on hand analysis readings with the code podcast for any listeners who want to follow up on that. And yeah, Substack's probably the easiest place to find me just because I'm more consistently there, although I am by no means consistent. I like to write when I feel inspired rather than every week or, every other week.
I understand, Lisa. I will, when I'm inspired, I will just go like article, 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 and then I'll just schedule them. So it looks like I'm consistent, but I'm not. The power of scheduling. That's a technological tool I do like.
Yes, yes, agreed.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show, Lisa, and sharing more about hand analysis and also the importance of embracing your gifts. And if you are being penalized for whatever reason and feeling very low, this might be a sign for you to be curious and reach out or go check out Lisa's work. So if you like this episode, please feel free to like, share, or subscribe. If you know someone who would be curious about hand analysis, share this episode to them and make sure to check out Lisa's details in the show notes. And thank you everyone for tuning in. And thank you again, Lisa, for being on the show.
Thank you, Catherine. It was so fun.
Hey, beautiful souls. I wanted to have a chat with you about a really amazing cacao that I drink to help me get in ceremony, to help me ground, but also just because it tastes freaking good. So, if you're curious and want to know about drinking something other than coffee or your standard tea, why not check out Creation Cacao? I love this with a bit of honey and cinnamon sprinkled in and just letting it brew and having that whole intention as you create this cup. So if you're curious and want to know more, check out the link in the show notes and enjoy your cup of cacao. Thank you for listening to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We have so much love and gratitude that you have taken the time out of your day to empower you on your healing journey. The views shared by the person being interviewed might not necessarily reflect that of the host and should be used at your own discernment. Trust what resonates for you and follow your heart and soul guidance. If you have any underlying medical conditions or mental health issues, please consult with your healthcare provider before pursuing any of the recommendations. Likewise, you can always contact the person being interviewed to find out more information. This can be found in the show notes. Remember to activate, align, heal, empower, and find love in everything that you do.